We should be almost there. Is now streaming live on YouTube. So there's a bit of lag. So hi, everybody. Welcome to the open source Web3 design group. Bi-weekly call, or once a month right now. Number 9. And so today is the post DevCon or DesCon, like we wanted to call it, edition. And we will have a presentation by Lily, who just launched today. Yay! And so we will see some design challenges on NFT market tools. And then we discuss about the great things about DevCon. But as usual, let's do a quick round of intros, also because maybe someone is new in the call. So ladies first. Lily, you go ahead.
Okay, guys. So my name is Lily, and I'm doing this project called CryptoDex, which you will see afterwards. Yes, we are doing this project in the NFT market. And I'm a designer, and I'm a product person, and a lot of things. Yes.
And you call next, or I'll call Minette.
Hi, everyone. My name is Minette. UX UI designer at Gnosis. And yeah, it's nice to be here again. Thanks, Milton.
Awesome. Sarah?
Hey, I'm Sarah. Lead design at Consensus. And I love you all very much.
Awesome. Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I do UX and product at AirSwap, which was a Consensus spoke, has since sort of spun off. Met some of you great people at DEF CON, and I'm now just trying to soak up all of the design resources that came my way. So good to meet you and be here.
Awesome, thanks. And Sarah, I forgot to say, we love you too. Amy.
Hey, I'm Amy. I'm the design operations at Consensus. In the Web3. Love you guys all.
We forgot to mention all the things that you did up to now, all of you at DevCon. So we will talk about that later. And James.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hobbs. I am a product designer in Consensus Solutions. And this is my first time joining the Web3 call. So I'm excited to be part of this. I am going to turn my video off for a little bit so I can eat my kebab and not look like just dripping rice everywhere.
Awesome. And thanks and welcome. And Zach.
Hi, everyone. Zach Kalman. I'm also at Consensus in product design. Work on the Rimble design system. And our team presented with Beltran at DEF CON, although I did not have the pleasure of attending, but I was there in spirit.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm Beltran. I'm the UX designer at the ENS, at the Ethereum name service, and also promoter of another Web3 design system that we presented, like we were saying with Zach's team, at DevCon. And so, having said that, let's kick off with a presentation. And Lily, you have the stage.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna share. 1 second, it may take all right, I'm gonna share this. Okay, can you guys see this? My screen? Yeah, okay, cool. So I have decided that I'm not gonna have a slide, but then we're just gonna go dive into the product because we just deployed like half an hour ago. So I'm very excited.
Woo!
So, okay, yes. So first of all, it's CryptoDex, the name, right? And we are in the alpha phase. So what are we? So we are an NFT market explorer. So basically what you could explore like transaction. We have the global stat, we have the brand stat, and our global stat is quite different than the rest of, the stats that's offered online. And I will tell you why a little bit later. Also, we have this feature, which is called, could you see my mouse here? No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
right?
can see it.
So we have also the watch list. Yes, so okay, let's start. Yes, so the first one is, and I will tell about the challenge like after this, right? Okay, that would make sense. Okay, so first we have, this is the global stats that we have. So if you look on the left, like we have like tons of graph right here. So if you could see, we have a circulating supply market cap, and we have the total supply market cap, which is, maybe you would ask, why would we have like all this stuff? Is because the idea is that we want to present the almost raw market data, right? We want to present the data which is as close as the reality as possible, because all of the sites right now for NFT, they only have a total supply market cap, which is not really reflecting the reality, because a lot of times all the NFT has been locked by the company, or it's not in circulation, you know, so you cannot really estimate the size of the project so well, for example. And on the right-hand side, so we have integrated like a lot of brands here, if you see, in all these nice colors. Yes, we also have the price here. Yes, so I mean, you guys can come here and just like play around with the stat. And most importantly, we have in ETH and in USD, because we have asked like several, like quite a bit of people, and most of the people, they still have to think when you buy an NFT in USD. So it's also quite important to have it here. Also here, we have the periodic performance of the brands. So then we already have the calculation for like you guys in all these brands, in all this, you know, like sales volume, like how much is it different in the period of time on the right-hand side. And also we have also this currency exchange. Also, apart from this, we also doing, this is like all the test idea. We have the ranks. The key of doing the ranks is that we know there's a lot of data out there in the market, right? But we just want to digest it in a way that people would understand it as fast as possible. So you grabs already from the page before the overview of the market, but then perhaps you also want to see the daily updates, right? Of the gainer and loser, and then this is like the tokens, right? So this is the ID. So of course, Decentraland is like X axis and Y axis. So it's like where the land or where the parcel is situated. This one is in US dollars. And also, we also have the token ranks. So on the ranks page, we have the daily one and the token ranks. So the ranks, it's how we made, it's some sort of like a pre-made ranks. So we have, for example, the most valuable NFT. We have most recent trades. Almost, it's like loading right now. It's loading, yes. And you can see a lot of CryptoKitties here. Yes, so yes, I mean, I think one of the idea that I have already mentioned is that because NFT is a growing market, right? And the volume is like, you know, we already have more than 1 million NFT tokens. So we believe that the more transparent it is for the market, right? Which means the more data that, you know, like public could see, it could in a way draw more people to join this market. So this is, one last thing. So we can also do the watch list. So instead, okay, so if you click on all this, if you click on the token, then you can, I cannot because I have this. You can also go to your watch list. Yes, so you can have the list that you watch and you can, of course, unwatch it. Yes, so this is our alpha. So should I talk about the challenges? Okay, so the challenges, I think I have 2 points. Actually, I have like tons of points, but 2 points that I would like to mention and maybe talk to you guys a bit is first, to do any kind of data visualization, I think it's important that to consider these 2 points to be useful or beautiful, right? Because I feel like we can do it even more useful. We can have more buttons, but it's also not aesthetically appealing. And then we kind of have to fight between these two, like what are we gonna, like release as our somehow in our first impression? How would people perceive this as a beautiful, cool apps or a very functional one? And somehow we meet a bit in the middle. Like you can see, we have a lot of things to play around. but then we're still missing a lot of stuff. So this is one thing that is quite difficult in this sense, because I think like the data that we are working on, I mean, if you look, we have even more here. It's like really tons of data, and it's just quite difficult to choose what is, should be prioritized in this sense. And the second one is that, is some sort of a product development concern rather than design. So as you see our stats, maybe it fits better to the investor of NFT rather than a collector, right? Because the idea of having NFT collector is someone who buy to collect, And when you collect, you probably don't buy and sell very often, right? I mean, you probably would do it once in a while, but there's also the kind of the users that push the market, that support the market in the long term. But these type of user may not be our prefer users, right? Because they don't come often. So it's more or less like we are building this for NFT investor, right? Which is like, we found a group of these people, but then in a way, in the long term, we also would like to build something for the collector as well. Or if we really want to focus on an investor, maybe we could, go forward into like DeFi or cryptocurrencies. So I mean, it's kind of, so NFT or our product now is kind of in between of the two, in a way. So I think that's the difficult, because if you could see, for instance, in ranks, right? You can, for example, you can also see this visualization, right? Which is also, of course, very important for collectors. But then maybe for investor, it would be more like interesting to see the difference of the price. Yes, so that's two things. Thanks so much for listening. That's it.
Awesome, thank you. And let's
okay,
open it for questions.
Yes.
Anybody has questions? We have questions, but Lily, can you just talk about if you are looking for feedback, like what types of feedback would be most useful so that you get the most out of this time from us too?
Okay, I would say that, I think that okay, so I think my pressing question would be, when you design, when you deal with a lot of data, right? Like, how would you, how would you go for the like the practical part first, or would you also have to consider the aesthetic part? Because you also, at the end of the day, you want people to use your product, right? But how, like, because sometimes it's like a lot of data, right? And you just kind of want to put it out there and let's say, like, let people try, and maybe you can select, okay, like this is going to be a highway because a lot of people like use it a lot, or, just basically the question is about how do you usually like compromise the aesthetic of design with designing something with a lot of data.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. Anybody that has had some experience with that? There's products here similar or with experiences.
So, I have, and I appreciate, Lily, how hard this is, especially in this space. And I know that Zach, it'd be great if he could share some work that he and some other people did jobs ago at some really data heavy stuff. My advice, so I think you hit attractive. You definitely hit that, right? It's very, it looks approachable, right? It looks like content is grouped together. There seems to be a hierarchy. I would say in this space, the most difficult thing is getting people to make a hierarchy of users and the job to be done, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can start, because I feel like, and I get this, I'm sure all of y'all have run into this, where they're like, but it's for everybody. But like, we can't obscure data from people. Like, they need all of this. And the real way to do that is to prioritize the job to be done and get them to say, okay, you know, maybe we can talk about that in the future, but we need to make sure it's accomplishing these goals first. So if I need to know for X, Y, and Z reason what the market cap is for this right now, then you can design to make that as easy as possible. And then the second job that I have to do, and third, and whatever. But it is hard when data people want to see patterns, and so they want to have a ton of options to visualize them. So I'm with you, but I'll stop talking. I think I just especially like the little high doll show all at the bottom. I just thought that was nice on the side. I was like, that's a good. Anyway, I'll let other people talk.
Any other people? Like Chris, you have experience with a lot of data as well, and Minette maybe as well.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could actually share your screen again.
Okay.
Something that we are actually trying to do right now is incorporate more market data and figure out, you know, it's really about prioritization and what information is most useful for the users that you're prioritizing, as Sarah said. Yeah, hold on, let me look at this.
Yeah, my question to that, I can add, maybe you can talk over this, which is, what are the most important things for a crypto NFT investor? Because it's a subset of the type of investors. Like, do they have aesthetical metrics that other investors don't have, like the likability of an NFT or something like that? What did they ask you? Sorry that I jumped on you, Chris, as well.
No, I think that was probably what I was gonna say next, was like, did you, like, what kind of research did you do going into this, and why were these particular sort of categories chosen in terms of the data that was implemented?
Yeah, so first we started off by interviewing like different type of potential users, and then we narrowed them down to the users that would have the potential to use this tool most often. And then we found that people who like rely on the data of the market, they, for example, there is this website called BCL Blogger. So it's some kind of blog that talks about the tips and how to buy decentraland parcel, right? Because now the price is increasingly expensive. I think last week someone bought one parcel that not one parcel, it's like okay, so they package like all the lands in one package, right? And it costs like about $215,000 for example. And you know, this kind of purchase, usually people need a lot of data to compare, and therefore we think it's a good idea to build the tools for people that really like need to use it. Because it's, you know, you don't want to spend a lot of money without like having this. But then currently we have assumption that it's probably very similar to, you know, when you are an investor in other type of assets, like, or, you know, for instance, stock market, right? So you have like a long-term investor, you have a short-term investor, and what matters to them are different. So for instance, for us, we think that a long-term investor, they basically need to see this graph, right? It's all-time performance, because they tend to hold this in the long term, and therefore they want to see the overall trend. And this graph is a way that you could really see the overall trend within like few seconds, right? But for the short term, then you would basically need to see like all the details, what is happening, what is gain and loss, like, you know, all this like minor detail, to be able to compare like the brands that you want to invest in. And maybe some of them they would buy as an investor, not only one token, right? They probably buy maybe 20 CryptoKitties token and things like that. So I mean, these are the things that we get from talking to like a lot of people. And so we try to build a product that I would say it's an educated guess. Okay. So as we just released an alpha and we believe that we're going to change a lot over time. But this is our like first guess.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I was just wondering, so it seems like you have narrowed it down to, it sounds like 2 or 3 personas, main personas. And I'm wondering about maybe doing a kind of journey mapping through the site for each persona. Because as you pointed out, I would imagine that different personas will have different priorities and different kinds of information that they would need. And it's not necessarily obvious how to go about finding that information. So if I'm an investor, how does the site lead me or curate my experience? Or if I am, what were your 2 other personas? Maybe you can remind us.
You asked what are the personas that we have, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So we have like one of the first is the people who build the product in an NFT market. So the startups. So basically, if you work or you build the product in an NFT market, then you need to come and see like the market trend often, right? Because it's part of your job. And this is one persona. And the second is the short-term investor. So I'm not going in priority. I'm just saying like, so the second is a short-term investor. So these are the people who, buy and sell like NFT tokens, like in order to like earn some like, kind of like pocket money from it. And the third are a bit longer term. So you also buy and sell, but mostly you collect. So for example, the last one, it would also make sense for them to, for example, like, see all these ranks, because at the end, we also want to add some maybe like more like a fun ranks here. Now we're just like testing it. But you're right. I think like now what we actually missing is that we don't have yet a very clear user journey for each type of persona. Like once you land on our page now, which we just deployed, it's just like, oh my God, where am I gonna go?
Yeah. Because I think if you've already done a lot of work in terms of thinking about these personas, and you have a lot of educated guesses around what they might need, and maybe if you help people sort of self-select the journey the first time they come through the website, and maybe make some suggestions around, where they could go first, and then just to give them a kind of pathway, a kind of like curated tour. You can ask, okay, like, are you this person or this person or this person? They can kind of explore that way.
Yeah, I've noted down.
And then even if they're not in that, in that path, they can select another path, and at least it's not so overwhelming in the beginning.
Yeah, so you would suggest that the simple way to do this is that once they land on CryptoDex, then I have something for them to select, like what is closest to your habits or whatever in NFT.
Yeah, that's one possibility for sure. And then they can select a kind of tour, if they don't already know the interface. So that is kind of catered to their interests, at least starting point, and that may make it less overwhelming for them. And kind of, I think usually people just they kind of need a pathway sometimes, and then from there they can start exploring.
Yeah. Not true. I agree. But is there like, okay, this is a question, like, so apart from having them select like who is the closest to themselves, is there any other way to build like a clear path on a website such as this? Because we have a lot of tools, right? We have this data visualization, we have this, we have, this daily ranks, we have like watch lists, we have a lot of stuff. Like, what would you suggest apart from the like let them select?
I mean, I think I would say in general that this is very investor focused as far as the content that you have on the screen. And I would be curious, Beltran mentioned this before, but just to explore some other like derivations of value for your users, like, someone who uses CryptoKitties. I use CryptoKitties. For me, what I care about in my kitties is not really their value. It's the interesting combination of colors. It's the head shape or whatever, you know, but just to think of like kind of the other ways that a user might want to see NFTs ranked or categorized.
This gallery or something like that.
To add on to what actually both Chris and Matt just said, so I'm clicking through, absolutely not paying attention like I should, because now I'm looking at everybody else's stuff, because there's ones in here I hadn't heard of, right? And then I found out that I can see a picture of them, right? And I can go through here and click and look at pictures of all the different NFTs, and I'm like, this is fun. Like, oh, maybe I want one of those. Like, I own one crypto kitty and it might be dead. I don't like, but this is an excellent discovery tool as well. I mean, you'll find that out the more you talk to people that use it. You know, that there are behaviors that you didn't foresee, you know, that will advise you on which direction to go in. But yeah, like right now I'm already, this is like, which is what I thought it was a long time ago when you first started talking about it. That's what I thought it was going to be, was like a gallery.
Yeah, we have like internal like pivoting like maybe 20 times.
But that's okay. It's also interesting to me to see what's expensive and what's not, right? And speculate as to, you know, why, if I'm not in that community, why is this one, you know, if I didn't know, and, you know, I'd be like, what's a Gen Zero? Why is that one, you know, cost more than this other one? So yeah, I think we've kind of just gotten a little confusing, right? Because it's like, focus on your users, find out the job they're trying to do, find out what they're using this for, or could, you know, maybe they're not using this yet, but like as a collectible investor person, you know, you've already interviewed Chris here, and she says, I'm in it for the colors, right? And you can, that's already a piece of data to ask more questions about, but then having a method for this always brings us back to analytics, and nobody ever has analytics for reasons, or they've modified analytics, but I'm saying like, that's going to give you a lot of information as well. Like if you have event trackers and stuff, so you can see where people are going the most and what is, you know, that'll help inform the questions that you ask as well.
Actually, thanks. Where there's already a kind of visual collection of NFTs.
There is called Nifty Gallery. So it was actually very close to the idea that we wanted to do, like, you know, where we wanted to make like a bit like a Pinterest for NFT, right? But then when we actually already built it, we just didn't deploy it because we thought, okay, at the end of the day, like, I mean, it's like the thing that it's really missing in the market is not, you know, it's not because of course, if you go to OpenSea and Rabbits, you can also create a profile and share, you know, a profile with friends and stuff like this. And so we thought, okay, what's really missing in the market is actually the transparency of all this data, right? Like you usually see it here and there. Okay, this company has, you know, released this, you know, tokenized, minted this new thing. And then another day you see, oh, another company tokenized this, you know, and then in like as a status of the market that is growing and a lot of people basically putting money into this, right? We think the thing that it's actually need as an industry is how the transparent the data is. Like for instance, that I mentioned about this circulating supply market cap, right? It's like none of the websites doing this at all. And, you know, like by like aggregating all this data, like we use API of OpenSea, but we also plug in directly with the brands, which is actually takes like tons of time to work on it. So yes, I think that's also this assumption of ours. And then we also meet the group of people who like, you know, doing this investment in NFT as a hobby. And so they also kind of need it. So I think it's kind of come together and we just, okay, let's try this. But I agree. I think it should also be perhaps more visual, like because Chris said, for instance, like there are a lot of people who's in for CryptoKitties not because of the price, right? But because it's cute. I also started off by
like one of the most delightful things about what you showed when you showed just on the offhand that you could expand that view and show the visual. It was like, oh wow, I just want to go through and click through all of those and look at them.
Finally, so it's useful.
Finding the sweet spot between what sounds like unique market data and sort of what NFTs are, which is visual.
Yeah, no, true, like this.
Okay.
It's cat. Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much. Super useful.
I have a ton of questions, and there's maybe one last one that relates more to the business side, but I think influences also how you design it, which is what is the business model that you are aiming at? Maybe that helps you define if it's a tool for one or the other target, and or whatever else. What is your thoughts for now? What are your thoughts for now on that?
So for now, we think like if we are established, if we could establish ourselves as a trusted market data source of NFT, right? Then perhaps we could, for example, partnership with brands. So when there are going to be, if they're going to mint new tokens, or if the new brands, they're going to enter the market having pre-sales, we can also help them promote, for example. This is one of the business model. Another business model is that once we have all these, like, more ranks, and we can have this filter search, we can then also enable buy and sell directly from the platform. And yes, so we are almost like a market interface. And of course, people don't have to buy and sell through us, right? They can also just do it like using their, like wallet address, or, just send this directly. But maybe we can make that experience a little bit easier, because once, if you could explore this market using our tools, it's also quite convenient. Like, for instance, if I have like ton of stuff in my watch list, then maybe the next step is that to buy stuff from within my watch list. And then we could, of course, same as CryptoKitties, we take a bit of commission on that if you buy and sell right from the platform.
Right, all right. So if I can give you only one suggestion and then we move on to the next section, would be on one side, there's another theme that launched something on metrics, which is the CoinDesk Crypto Economics Explorers. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, not yet. CoinDesk?
Crypto Economic Explorer. Let me share it here for all of you.
Okay.
It isn't perfect, but to all panelists, I've attached here the link. It isn't perfect, but it's a way of detaching yourself from time series.
Okay.
And to give other parameters about the value of a crypto asset in this case. And you're losing the time series, or you can change it for other parameters. In general, in information visualization, there's like 5 principles. Time, location, category, association, another one which I don't remember right now, and you can play with these things. A lot of information is difficult to make choices on, but of course I am far from being an NFT investor, so I have no clue how they parse all the data and all the parameters. And, some optionality on turning off some of those parameters is more something that could be interesting. And personally, I think that also you should, if you are an expert investor, you should be able to set a coefficient for that parameter. So maybe you are interested 0.1 for the market cap, and it reduces either the dimension or it becomes in the fused analytics, a tiny parameter for it. I don't know. This is just we can have more on that. But we have 20-ish more minutes, unless we have some new people in the call, and we usually have these 30 seconds introduction. So if Nicolas and Kim, you want to introduce yourself, like very briefly. Thank you.
Oh, hi there. This is Nicholas Kokalis. I am a researcher at Stanford University, and my lab is specifically trying to solve the problems of design and user experience so that we can all push the blockchains and blockchain applications further.
Awesome. And Kim? Or Kevin?
Hey, yeah. Hey, I'm Kevin. I'm a product manager at Quartz, and I'm a designer as well, and have been somewhat involved in the space for a while now. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for joining the call. And a lot of you were also at DevCon, and the theme of the day was also to discuss a bit what happened at DevCon. And you can go around, we can go around the room again to talk about it. I'll just give the index. Lily curated with Akil also the identity and reputation breakout panel. Minette, you had a workshop, correct? What was the title of the workshop?
It was called Zen Mind and Depth UX Design.
Awesome.
Designing the Gnosis Safe, UX design for the Gnosis Safe, something like this.
Awesome. And Amy, well, let's you girls and guys do each your own presentation, and maybe 2 minutes each or 1 minute each to say what was it, what was good, what was bad, and maybe if you wanted some feedback or if you have some insights to share, whatever you want. So Minette, go again. You said the title, you finish it off.
Sorry, what do you want me to say again?
Anything about the workshop, if it worked, if it could be improved, if you have feedback on that, or if you want feedback on that from people that were at your thing, okay. So that we create the basis maybe for the next design con. And this is a generic idea, so if you want to take this section of the conversation somewhere else, let's do it also.
Yeah, well, my personal experience was really, really positive. Had a nice group of people joining the workshop. I would say it was less of a workshop in the end because it was towards the end of the conference, Friday afternoon, something like 1:45 to 2:45. People are pretty tired. And also it overlapped, unfortunately, with the DAP Design Awards, which I did encourage people to also attend. So I talked for a bit in the beginning, basically outlining 5 habits of mind that are really useful to keep in mind in the practice of UX design especially for folks who are not necessarily experienced UX designers, especially for people who may be developers or project managers, kind of a framework to think, like a UX designer. And then talked about sort of parameters of research, why to do user testing on small scale is also very effective for teams. And the plan was to do some snap user testing, but really people just wanted to ask questions and discuss. So we ended up doing that for most of the rest of the time, and which was totally fine. I think several folks came up to me afterwards, were very nice and said that they got a lot of it. But if anybody on the call was there and has some feedback, I'm always, open to feedback, either live or later, on the channel as well. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks. Anybody who was there had thoughts for her? Or Amy? Or you were there, Chris? You wanted to say something?
I was there. It was great. I was going to just apologize for leaving early for the awards, but I really enjoyed a lot of, especially the metaphors that you brought in. I think that it's always nice when it's not just about design necessarily. I feel like you brought in a lot of interesting outside analogies and metaphors that just made it feel sort of bigger and more universal, which was great.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I guess I would, as a suggestion for next time, we shouldn't like coincide the workshops with the Dev Design Awards.
Or anything. There was a lot of overlap. We'll try not to have overlap. I think
I personally was sad about missing them.
Yeah, me too. And Amy, the UX Awards and UX Audit. So if you want to relate.
Yeah, Minette and I were just talking about this today. The UX Awards and the audits went a lot better than we expected. So so I can just throw some information, which is for the audits. I think we gave probably more than 45 audits in this like 4 days. And it was actually still really popular day 0, day 1, and just rolling up. Some people came back twice because they just really liked it. Really great reviews from designers and people who got the audit. A lot of the takeaways, I have a survey that I sent out. And so I'm still kind of receiving some information on that, but some really great stories about how they really start to think of design, about their business of their design and things like that. So overall, extremely positive, and we're trying to think about how we can continue this at hackathons and as kind of our gift as designers to this community. And then, and also like, please, I know a lot of you guys have done them. Some feedback would be great. I figure I'll just talk about both the awards and audits, and I can get some feedback from you guys. And then the awards itself, we had 85 submissions in 7 days, around 7 days, which is pretty awesome. A lot of the UX audits rolled into that as well. We still had a lot of people come up to us like, hey, is it still open? We're like, no, we're presenting right now. But I think there's a lot we learned logistically about running that, but our judges were incredibly awesome at like crunching down to review everything. We've talked a lot. I've seen a lot of the conversations about like some of the winners, Argent and things like that. I wish we had some more time to maybe I guess showcase that. We did have a little bit time left, but I wish we had kind of shown the experience in a more packaged way. Like Argent kind of had the opportunity to do that, but not all of the others got to do that. So I've got a whole list of learning lessons that I know for next year we're gonna deploy, but anyone have feedback? If you participated, if you didn't, what you'd like to see?
A bigger room.
A bigger room.
What? Is it possible? Oh, you mean the audit, right? Okay, no.
The audit for the room.
Okay.
It was so hot. Yeah, we requested a bigger room.
Yeah.
And a platform where we can give them feedback. I wrote it in my feedback to you. Like I was typing on a notepad and send them the information. It would be cool if everything would be recorded so that, hey, there's the proof or there is a contribution that we can show that this was provided, you know?
Yeah, I think that was actually what happened is like all of these we thought about and then we couldn't execute them because there was so many people coming in that we didn't actually have enough facilitators. Towards the end, I kind of had to like leave, and designer, everyone is obviously really good at self-facilitating, but I think for next year, if we can have a little bit more support on that, that would be awesome. I know this year we didn't ask because we just didn't know what was going to happen. But next year, if people are up for facilitating like each day or something like that, we can have that kind of support where we're setting up recordings and like feedback and like time boxing, because I know that was a big thing. People wish that it was time boxed because some of them ran really late.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. I wonder even a kind of analog, because it is, some of it was quite spontaneous. So maybe even an analog printout of like a schedule where people could sign up and you know, the designer can sign up and then teams coming in.
Yeah, this was the I've been trying to put it together. Yeah.
That's something really simple.
All right, we should accelerate a bit. And Kevin, you had a talk, so it was kind of easy. But do you want to relate a bit?
Sure. So my talk was guerrilla tactics for user research. I'm a product manager and designer, so not a formally trained user researcher myself, but I've worked closely on a lot of user research at big and small companies. And I guess at small companies, I've done a lot of the user research myself. And so the point of my talk was just to kind of underscore how difficult it is to get any sort of user or market validation for dApps today, where it's just so hard to get a single user sometimes, or single active user. And people are doing their smart contract development and testing often before getting any real validation or traction. So I spent some time outlining that problem and dispelled some myths about the difficulties or barriers around user research. And then drawing from my experience, gave a bunch of specific tactics on what people can do in terms of basic user feedback or research at the idea, prototype, testnet, and mainnet stages. In terms of how it went, I think it went solid. Had a bunch of people ask me questions after. I would be interested in hearing people's feedback, actually. But I definitely tried to position it more towards someone who, even if they didn't really believe too much already in the value of design, that they would find some practical use out of it.
I thought it was awesome. Very useful.
Same, yeah. I went to it and I thought it was really great. You gave some perspective to not necessarily like designers, but for other kind of, if you're non-designer.
I appreciate it.
I thought you also outlined like the product process really clearly. It was mostly about research, but I think there are a few parts where you split it up and highlighted even design thinking in a way, just like baked into it, which was great. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. I actually talked to, I think Samer and Hani, two designers who led a prototyping workshop right before that. And they were also emphasizing a point around try to build a basic front-end prototype and use that for testing before you even smart contract development. And I also like had that in my presentation as well. I thought that was interesting that we both kind of were coming from very different angles, but sharing a similar perspective on how to do that.
Yeah, it would be great to hear developers who've attended your talk and see, hey, did we learn something? During the whole conference, I have heard continuous people coming and say, hey, I start to understand design, thank you, something like that. So if this happens and they give you feedback about the talk, especially when it's going to be published, because your talk, I think, is being recorded, and it's going to be online. It would be great to hear what they say, because we tried with Sarah, Tara, Johnny, and Alex also when we and Mamie, when we thought about the design track for DevCon, we wanted developers to wake up to design, and so hearing what they think is sparkling.
Is there any specific way that we could kind of make sure that happens?
Yeah, it's a good question. we probably should ask for feedback, or guerrilla user research expert. What do you suggest?
Let's use
it will be
earn.com.
on YouTube, right? So we can see people's comments.
Yes.
So on the app or on the guidebook, you could rate people's talks, but I think I only had I'm sure most people barely have many unless it's like a main stage one. So I wonder if we could get the organizer. Are they going to do some sort of post DevCon survey?
Maybe, yeah. I think they are, right?
Sarah? I think it got sent out.
Did. Actually, it was sent out. It went, right to my spam folder, but I found it.
Okay. Because they know which talks that you've favorited to attend. So theoretically, they could ask you questions about the specific talks you visited.
Yeah.
You can use the app.
Then you have to ask Hudson, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, we should try. We'll ask maybe when she comes back from the holidays. Anybody else who has comments for Kim or about this, or
I missed it and I regret it now.
Okay. Lily and Akil, you had the breakout together, right?
Yeah, I think I would let Akil speak. Is he like, he's like lurking like in the back and he doesn't speak today? Hey, okay. Akil, are you there?
Akil, manifest yourself. You have to talk, Lily.
Akil, you're not here? Okay, he's not.
He's sleeping.
He's pretending to be here.
He's like pretending. Okay. Okay, so you are really not here. Okay, cool. So our session is design UX for decentralized identity and reputation. So it was super cool, I would say. Like, so more people came than we expected because it's on the 2nd November at 10 o'clock. And we actually expect like 20 people. But then I think it turns out to be almost 50 people. Which is really cool. But one thing about Breakout is that because we have like identity and reputation, which is basically overlapping issue, right? But it's overlapping, but it's not the same, you know, in a way. And you have these two different issues in one room. So it's quite difficult to facilitate in a way. So we split them into different like smaller tables. But of course, we have a problem in a way that, okay, some people want to be in this table more, or this table getting really big than a smaller table. People say, oh, I don't want to miss out this. And then we have to break them even into smaller groups. And then we use Etherpad. Like first I was thinking, oh my God, I have to set up this node on Raspberry Pi. But we don't, because it's already an instance, it's a public one, so we can just use it. But I think the discussion was too valuable. So what we have on Etherpad was not like, you know, really in details. So maybe I don't know, like if you do this next time, maybe we have to record it, but I don't know if you record it and maybe people didn't want to speak their heart out or didn't want to criticize another project, right? But I think it's actually very interesting because I think apart from Conflux, like it's one of the very few space where people who work in identity and reputation, they could kind of get together and talk and ask questions and, you know, reflect from the talk that they heard before, like 1 or 2 days before in DEF CON. Yes.
Awesome. Any comments or thoughts for her? Anybody in the room?
No.
I personally liked the format that Hadassah and Rayan suggested at the end, like the chairs. You have to sit down in the chair before speaking. That managed the tension in the identity and reputation field, which is very conflictual and controversial between different teams. And when that format stopped, everybody started debating again. So I thought that was a clean way to manage the debate. I like that. And continuing on another breakout, because we had 3 breakouts and a lot of workshops, or maybe you, Sarah, you did a presentation at the beginning. Do you have an idea generic about the whole track that you want to talk about before I relate about 3 things, and maybe Zach as well?
I don't know. All I can say is I went in with a real bad attitude. I had really low expectations, and I couldn't be prouder to be in a group of designers like y'all, because you just blew it out of the water. And I think really delivered value. And all I wanted was for design to just be like a part of the conversation, just a tiny bit. Like, and that's a lot to ask, I think, at a conference full of developers, right? Like, but I mean, that's living the dream. Living the dream is like, everybody's a designer. You, developer, you're now a designer too. And like spreading this virus, right, of thinking about users. So I don't know. If you looked at Twitter from just randos, everybody said the words UX and design and users and stuff. So like, you know, mission accomplished. Like that was way over mission accomplished. But I was just, I don't know. I was really proud to be associated with y'all.
Awesome. And we were very proud of being associated with you. And
I don't want to do any more singing. I love Song a Day Guy.
You sang?
I never want. Oh, Beltran. We don't have to talk about this right now.
Okay. We have to rewatch the video about that.
No, we don't. Nope.
No. So about teams that were not here, Tara and Connie, of course, they had the introductory workshop. It was introducing design to people. New Way had also a TCR oriented role-playing workshop. We had a lot of other talks from Richard at Balance, from the unintended consequences of product design from Taylor. We classify them as a design because of the user orientation of it. And we had also two other breakouts, which was one from Alex van de Sande about gas abstraction, very technical. It was in the format of a round table. I couldn't attend because we were preparing the breakout that we did after with Ryan and Hadassah again. Thanks for helping facilitate that. That was around onboarding. And we had 4 macro themes, which was education, fiat to crypto on-ramp and off-ramps, wallet to dApp logins, and the 4th one was, yes, this gasless and keyless interaction so that people in the previous room could come in. And we tried to structure it as a design sprint in 2 hours. So it was a challenge that we tried to take. And we managed to arrive to a point where the teams designed something, but there wasn't much time left to share between people that created something. So that was one of the downsides. And we created a page in Conflux to share, and only one team share their project there. And that was a lesson learned for the future, either more time or just have a moment to share with the team, with the whole participants. We also had the ENS onboarding booth, which I'm not going to relate. It was just, hey, if you have users, you need ENS. And if you want to simple user experience, come and see ENS. We still have a long way to go before we release our own version of the manager, which we've been hard at work. And hopefully it will be by the end of the year that we can tackle that again. And more importantly, something that Zach can probably talk about also, we had the Web3Design system presentation with Consensus talking about Rimble, Akil and me talking about the open source Web3Design system, and we joined in a panel. Zach, do you want to talk about Rimble a bit?
Sure. Thank you for participating in that. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't actually be there for the presentation, but really cool to kind of provide a united front to the community on this type of consistency and standards, and also efficiency for product teams as well, becoming a priority within design in this space. We, for Rimble, released what is essentially our work in progress, just a set of really rudimentary kind of foundational components, and then talked at the talk a little bit about the direction we're going, which is working primarily, or initially rather, with a few teams within Consensus as kind of our research partners in creating an initial set of Ethereum-specific components. Rimble's a React library, and we'll be building out additional documentation and resources for designers over time as well. But we're really focused on creating something that will be useful for front-end developers as our primary target audience for the system. As of now, it's version 0. We actually just today did a version bump to 0.1.2, patching some of the documentation and a couple of bugs but we're just going to keep iterating on that work. And we're really glad to have the opportunity to talk about it at DevCon.
Awesome. We probably should do web design systems call, since there's like 3 already, and Status is joining. Lori Keat also. Aragon was another, Joni from Aragon was another of the talks who presented Lori Keat and other endeavors. And it's becoming interesting to compare notes. And on our side of the presentation, since we had some ideas of the components that I wrote about in the Web3 design principles at the beginning of the year. What our approach was this year was to validate some of those assumptions. And so we started doing research, interviewing a lot of the front-end developers and designers, users, or product people, any people that have talked to users. We want to hear and talk to you still. We are going through till December and January a bit to this interview phase. And what we presented at DevCon was an initial framework to think about problems in Web3 design space and the solutions that people are adopting. And so we called it the problem and solution space of Web3. And I'm going to publish an article probably this weekend to share that presentation. But in our panel, it fit well that we had like research and only no components, and Rimble had a bit more ideas for the components. And so this is something that actually, when we publish also the framework, we would like to have a lot of feedback, especially from you guys, to see if it works, to put it to the test. It's an assumption right now to see if it works. And having said that, yes, Minute?
I was just wondering too, so far, sorry, I haven't been able to look through all of the design systems, but do we know if they are also including mobile platforms?
Yeah, so that was actually one of the biggest insights from the research, which is everybody thinks mobile is going to be, everybody, by everybody, I mean all the people that we've interviewed, designers, developers, product people, think that mobile is the future, especially for adoption and retail or consumers, let's call it. But everybody's building is building for desktop. So at least in our view, we are going to build the mobile component or responsive component. And I don't know, Zach, what you want to answer for that about Rimble?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're taking a similar approach in that we are building responsive components. The big problems that we hear about often deal with a desktop workflow. So it's kind of tricky to square, a user-centered approach where we're trying to address problems that deal mainly with desktop, with also incorporating mobile patterns. One thing that we've heard in talking to a couple of teams is that do have responsive apps is that from a UI standpoint, well, under the hood, they've had to make a couple of changes to work with mobile wallets versus MetaMask or other desktop wallets, that the UI patterns actually have worked pretty consistently and stood up across devices, desktop and mobile. So that was encouraging for us to hear that we can start to think of patterns more holistically that work across devices, similar to the way we would think about, many Web 2 patterns, and recognizing that while there may be some changes under the hood to accommodate mobile wallets, the design approach should hold up.
And yeah, to add to that, there's two connected insights that might help you if you think about mobile and the thing, which is not everything will be needed on mobile. There is high risk or complex dApps, like maybe trading dApps or buying a security token or investing in a MakerDAO CDP, for example, people don't feel that is a mobile application and they want to be on a larger, more secure platform like the desktop. But every user in this case, desires this continuity between desktop and mobile. And right now you have your private key connected to either a wallet in a desktop on MetaMask usually, and they want to be monitoring or maybe doing tiny interactions on mobile. So that transfer of the private key, which actually the universal login pattern that Alex Van de Sande presented also at DevCon solves, because you don't have a private key in a specific platform. Your private key or your identity is the wallet that is deployed, and you interact with it from any other device or browser. That is probably one solution to that idea. But yeah, thinking about this continuity between desktop and mobile is something that we as designers need to tackle for the future and invent solutions for that.
Yeah, I'm also really interested in people who are developing native mobile apps, because I think there's not that many so far.
Yeah, they will come. A lot of people said they are trying to go to the responsive route and bring mobile for that.
Speaking of that, does anyone have screenshots of Argent inside the actual app? And can they send them to me?
They haven't launched, they semi-launched. We are in waiting phase still. But I think you can call them.
They told me that it's because they have to like pay for each person they onboard. So they're just doing it like slowly because they want to make sure that the people who are onboarded are the people, because they're paying for the gas, I think, or something like that. So they just want to make sure the people who are onboarding are just going to like peace out. But I think
curious about the interface.
Everyone on the Telegram chat has been definitely talking about that.
Yeah. There are 3 people from Argent in the design group, and you can talk to them. Julian, Graham, the designer, and also somebody else. I don't know. Somebody else wanted to say something or was saying something?
Oh, I was just going to say, I was just taking notes from their UX awards, and I was like, I think I remember seeing this on the screen, but I really hope that I didn't imagine it. So yeah, I've been also very anxious to see the past the wait list.
Yes. And their onboarding solution that they independently created is very similar to the universal login, which is an open solution that you can check Alex Van de Sande presentation. Of course, tiny details vary, but the generics are there. And yes, they are paying for the gas, which is one of the patterns that also emerged from this onboarding efforts that companies need to facilitate the onboarding of new users, probably simplifying and hiding away a lot of the things at the beginning and progressively educating. This is something, Minette from Gnosis, also you're doing very well.
Actually, we just wanted to add to that. I mean, the SAFE is open sourcing, the SAFE contracts, I believe. And one of the things that they are have figured out how to do is to have the gas transaction for the creation of the SAFE actually come from the first transaction, the first deposit. So essentially, the user is funding their own wallet. So it sort of solves that problem. Yeah, unless they're not willing to do that. Very cheap.
But you need to explain that they have that tiny debt when you create the wallet, right?
And it's not a debt, actually. It's just a transaction fee. It's an opening fee, basically. Like, to create the wallet, they have to transfer ETH or a token. It can be paid in token or ETH. They just have to transfer into the wallet, and then it's created, and automatically the gas is taken from that.
From there, yeah. But this works with users that have already crypto. If we need to onboard the millions or billions of people that don't, we need to find solutions. And that was one of the themes.
Yeah, there's actually, we can talk about, maybe because the time is running short, but there are actually some ideas for partnerships around that, like with certain projects where if it was a partnership, for example, like we're launching mainnet at the end of the month, and for Android, and that is a partnership with Coin One in Korea, and I think that they are also doing an airdrop that will fund the gas for that, so that kind of helps a bit.
Awesome. Looking forward to have you present it here.
Maybe early next year.
Okay. Any other closing thoughts, considerations, questions?
I have one. Well, I think this is from our session in identity and reputation, and I have just realized that, like, among almost 50 people, if it's not including me, Hisrandra, like Rianne, we basically have another 3 women in the room. So it's really, really like few women in my session, and I think it just, I mean, it's
anywhere,
few
women anywhere at DevCon.
I think in tech in general, women is very few, and I think in like kind of a more specific vertical like we are working in, it's very, very few. I don't know, maybe we should onboard more women into this space. Okay,
definitely. Definitely, women in blockchain.
Yeah,
Woman token incentivizing women to join.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The web, the women in blockchain token.
The web, exactly. Nice. Yeah. Alrighty.
I have just a question. Do you know, Beltran, if so I was told that the sessions were recorded. Do you know if these recordings will be released in the future? Or?
They will be released. I don't know if the workshops were recorded, because the breakouts have not been recorded as far as I know.
Yeah, I think so either, because I received a message saying that, and then at the end, I was talking to someone, and she was kind of packing up some stuff, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you were webcast and recorded," and so I was really surprised because
okay. That's maybe they did record, and we will have to see. We'll talk about that. We're waiting for Hudson to do all the process. They're probably going to release first main stage, secondary stage, and then the tiny other activities. That's why at conferences you should attend workshops and not talks. Besides Kevin's.
Beltran, I was just going to say, I missed so many of the workshops and they all sounded great. So how can we do them remotely, like this format?
Yeah, actually, there's been a lot of talks to create a DesCon or design conferences, especially at all the ETH weeks, whatever, at the hackathons, or our own conference. Okay, there's a lot of people interested in this. And I think that will be a subject for our community in the future, as will be changing the time of these calls so more people can be in. Next one will be for the Aussies, because there's a lot of community in Asia that can never come to these calls because it's 4 a.m. And so we're trying to switch it for another time for them. And or at least for once, or we do this, and we need to take these kind of conversations somewhere. And for everybody, you remember we have the Conflux network, that is CONFLUX.network, where we have the discuss forum to participate and to propose ideas. Anybody is welcome to post and ask questions. Like the status guys have shared invaluable user research, like this thick. I have not finished studying it. So thank you, status guys. And hope to see more things coming in the community. Alrighty. So see you all soon. In 2 weeks, there is going to be the Aussie, the Asia call. Alrighty?
Okay.
Talk to you soon. Thank you for
you.
being here and for making design awesome in the space. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye, guys.